If you want to be able to print your report off where each group has its own page, like this group is on one page, this group is on another, and why would you want to do that? Maybe you've got a meeting and you want to be able to have each group on its own page so you can write notes down below while you're focusing on that one group. In any case, to go ahead and have these have their own pages, let's right-click in a blank area and go to the Design view. And what we're going to be doing is using the Force New Page feature based upon a section. So the book title header section, every time there's a change in the book title, each one will have its own page, and that includes the corresponding records. So before there's a change in the book title, let's do a new page. To be able to bring this up, you want to bring up the property sheet for the book title header section by double-clicking on its bar. And there's the property sheet on the All tab. And go down to Force New Page. It's right there. And now it's set to none, but when I click on the drop-down arrow, we can choose Before Section. So it's going to break it before this section, meaning that every time there's a change in the book title, it'll get its own page with its corresponding records. And then when it has a new title, it'll go ahead before that section, as it were, that change, force a new page. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like. Right-click on the tab, go to the Print Preview, and hey, there we go. Click on it to zoom out. There's one group that's on one page. Go to the second page, the second group, and so on. So each group, click on it to zoom in, has its own page. More specifically, before a change in the book title, it'll force a new page. So on this page, we got basic medical billing, but before it has a change in it, because the next page would be a different title, it'll force a new page and put that different title on the next page. Believe and Grow Rich. Believe it. Let's go ahead and right-click and go to the Design view. And let's change this. Instead of Before section, click on the drop-down arrow and do After. Now quick, pause the video. Think about what this means, that every time there's a change in the book title, after it, it's going to force a new page. So that means right after, immediately after the title, before the records, the book title is going to have its own page. Well, let me show you. Right-click, go to the Print Preview. Book title, no records, because the records are on another page because it comes after it. So that's on another page, but then the next book title has got its own page, and then its records on the second page, the next book title on the next page, and its records after that, and so on. Let's right-click, go back to the Design view, and then last but not least, we've got the Before and After. But if you have any questions on this, you can always, well, with the cursor flashing in that field, hit the F1 key on the keyboard. Opens up the Microsoft Help site here, and then click on the link here, Section, Force New Page Property, and then scroll down, and there we go. Before section, the current section is printed at the top of a new page, and then the section immediately following the current section is printed at the top of a new page, and then the current section for Before and After is printed at the top of a new page, and the next section is printed at the top of a new page. What you're looking at here is my sales and profits report, and I have all my customers grouped by the book title or the book that they purchased, like in this example, 101 Pizza Combinations. We have the customer Feeders Catering who bought 6, Ghost Hunters 5, and so on. Then we have the total sales for that book title, and then what we have in stock and on order. What I want to do here is create a custom calculated field just to the right of these two that has the total inventory for that book, so that it'll add up the in stock plus the on order. So to go ahead and create that total inventory custom calculated field, let's right click in a blank area, go to the Design view, and before we do that, let's go over what we're looking at here. We've got the book title header section, which is grouping all the customers by book title. And so we got the text box fields here, and we've got the labels for the customers, well, the customer name with the customer text box field. And then we got the quantity sold with its data field down below, transaction date, the label for the sales date, and then the order ID label for the order ID data field. And then below that, we have the book title footer, meaning that at the end of that group, at the footing of it, you're going to get the, well, total sold, what you have in stock, and on order before it goes over to the next group or the next book title. And over to the right, I want to go ahead and add the total inventory custom calculated field. To do that, I want to go ahead and insert the text box by coming up here on the Design tab, going to the Controls group, and clicking on Controls. And there it is, text box. Click on it. And remember that you want to give yourself enough space and not get right up close to something else, because if you do, when you click on it, it's going to add a label over to the left-hand side and over to the right, an unbound text box. So I want to give myself enough space that when I click, there you go, the label doesn't end up in this mess right here. So first off, let's look at the label. I don't know if you can see that, but the default text is, I think, text 143. So let's go ahead and change that. You can go ahead and select it, then click on it again and edit the contents therein. You can do it that way, or if you double click on the border really fast, you can bring up the property sheet for that label, and you can see here on the Alt tab, the name of the label for me, the designer, in the back-end view here is label 144. Well, what's 144? I don't know. So let's go ahead and clean that up and leave the prefix label, but call it like label TI for total inventory. Let's go ahead and hit enter. That way when I'm, working in the design view and I'm like, okay, where's the total inventory label? Well, you can come up here, click on the drop-down arrow, and the prefix is labels, so we're looking for a label, and there it is, TI. Select it, takes you right to it. And then for the front-end user, we don't want the caption text 143. This is total inventory, so that ain't going to work. Let's get rid of that. Delete it, and then type in total inventory and hit enter. And then let's close out to take a look at it, and it's being cut off. It can't squeeze in that teeny tiny box. So let's go ahead and hover over the right middle resizing handle until I can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. And then you can click and drag out. And when you're clicking and dragging, notice down below on the status bar, it'll show you how many characters there are. So if I come up here and I click and drag, see that? Got a total of 12 characters. And if I keep going to the right, it'll allow 13 characters, 14, and well, it's just a one-liner. So if I go ahead and hover over the bottom middle resizing handle and click and drag down, and I open it up enough that allows 2 lines, you can see down below in the status bar that it's 2 lines. So, well, let me do that and undo it. And instead, hover over the right middle resizing handle, double click really fast to do a best fit. Cool, that looks good. And let's go ahead and right click and go to the print preview. Okay, the color. Well, you can leave it as is, but if you want your label to be the same color as these other labels, I've got some tips, tricks, and shortcuts that I want to go over and how you can, take the color here and apply it to this label here. To do that, let's right click and go to the design view. And one way to do it is just to go ahead and select the label that you want to pull the color from and double click on the border to bring up its property sheet. And on the Alt tab, go down to look for color, and there we go. So go ahead and click and drag and select that code there and do Control C to copy. And then we can come over here and select the label that we want to apply that color to. On the Alt tab, there it is, color. Click in there, highlight it, and then Control V as in Victor to paste it, hit enter. And let me close out to check it out. And hey, it's the same color. Okay, that works. That's one way. Another way, well, let me go ahead and hit undo. So we're back to orange. Let me come up here and click on the Format tab. Is that you can use the paintbrush, the Format Painter, which I go over extensively in my word training video. But to give you just a brief overview, what it does is that it'll take it with whatever label or text box you selected, and it'll dip the brush in there and pull out only the formatting. Then you can brush or apply to, in this case, this label here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to choose our paint bucket. And what bucket's that we want that color or formatting from? It's this one right here. Now when I say formatting, I'm not talking just about color. I'm talking about any other formats that's being applied to it, like the alignment. You see where that's right aligned, the label, and total inventory has got no alignment. So when I use the paintbrush, it's pulling all formatting that's in this bucket, as it were, or this label. So with it selected, come up here to click on the brush so it dips it in that bucket of formatting. And you can see when I move my pointer around, I get the brush. Well, it's got a brush with a line through it because on the grid it's like, hey, you can't click here. Oh, all right. But you can click on this label here. So when I click on it, there you go. 2 things that happened. It applied the color and also applied the, well, right alignment. Okay, so far so good. Next, let's go ahead and write our expression in this unbound text box and make it bound to our expression. That will add up in stock and on order. So we can go ahead and double click on the border. And then up here on the Alt tab, okay, what's the name of it? Well, it's the text box. So it's going to be text box for our total inventory. Hit enter. So that's my name here in the design view. And then the control source, well, we're not going to have it pulling data from another field, we're just going to click in here and start typing in our expression. But if the expression's kind of long and it may not all be seen within this field here because it's only yay big, you can go ahead and stretch, the property sheet and get more space, or just leave it as is and right click on it and zoom in so it opens it up, and wow, you get more space here, right? Okay, let's go ahead and write our expression. Type in equals, open square brackets, and then the name of the fields. First of all, the first field in the first set of brackets, which is in stock. And then close square brackets, and then we want to go ahead and say plus, and then open square brackets, the on order, and then close square brackets, and that's it. Now, it's not case sensitive when it comes to the expression. As you can see down below, in stock, it's uppercase I and uppercase S. I didn't type it in, so will it accept it? Of course it will. It's not case sensitive, or for on order either. In any case, when we're done, go ahead and click Okie dokie. You can see it's right there. Be sure to hit the Enter key, because upon exit, Access checks the work of the last field that we were in here, the control source, to make sure everything's grizzly. And if it likes it, well, we don't get any bugs or warnings that will pop up in front of us here. So let's go ahead and take it for a test drive and see if it actually adds up in stock and on order. Let's go ahead and right click and go to the print preview, and let's see, 80. Okay, wait a second. Let's check this out. See 30, C3 plus 5, carry the 1, denominator. Yep, that's 80 right there. Cool. So it works, but we don't have the color that we want. But we know how to go ahead and take care of that. We can right click and go to the design view and choose your weapon of choice. You can either go ahead and just, select one field that contains the color, or use the format paintbrush, but I'll just go ahead and do the label here. On the Alt tab, let's find the for color right there. Click and drag, Control C, and then select this. Come over here, Alt tab, looking for the for color, Control V as in Victor, hit enter, cool. And then, maybe you want to make these just a little bit closer together. And in fact, because the box is yay big and we're getting a number, where does that number sit? In the middle of the box? Let's come up here, click on the Format tab, or when it pulls in the number, do we want it to align to the left-hand side so it's closer to the label? Yeah, I like that. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's do left align. And let's go ahead and right-click on the tab, go to the print preview, and they're getting closer. That's nice. Hey, don't be shy. We want to make sure that we tie our label as close as we can to the number. In any case, how about if we go ahead and we add a line that breaks up these groups so at the end of each group, before it starts the next one, we got a line breaker there. To do that, let's right-click and go to the Design view, and let's close out of the Property sheet. Come up here on the Design tab, go to the Controls group, and in the Controls, there's our line. Let's go ahead and click on it, and you get a plus, and with the line next to it, meaning that when you click, it's going to add a line, but let's click and drag. And you want to try to keep it as horizontal as possible, because if you start doing this thing, well, you see the line? That ain't going to work. And in fact, the line, the default, is transparent. So you won't be able to see it anyways. Like when I right click and go to the print preview, nothing. So let's right click, go back to the design view. After you draw your line, you want to go ahead and give it color. Let's do it well, I was going to say we can do it the same color as that, but we're in experimental mode right now. Let's just go ahead and double click on the border to bring it up here on the Alt tab. Well, by the way, if you want to select the line, there's the label for it, line 147. So I'm clicking off over here and I'm trying to click on the line and I can't get it. Well, you can click on the drop down arrow and it's sorted alphabetically. You go to the line, and it's the only line that we have, it's 147. So, you can say this is line 1, select it and, delete this and say it's line 1 because maybe you're adding more lines, line 2, 3, and so on. Whatever works best for you. Make sure you give it the name that you recognize. And so with line 1, let's hit the Enter key to accept it. And then I'm looking for the border color right here. It's got no color. Let's go ahead and click on the Build button so we can choose a color like red. And there's the color there. So let's go ahead and check it out. Right click, go to the print preview, and let's go ahead and change that. Right click, go back to the design view because, well, I'm trying to make a point. You want to make sure that your line is drawn straight, unless of course you want a diagonal, which, hey, now we know how to do it. Let's go ahead and hover over the top middle resizing handle until we can see arrows pointing up and down, click and drag that down. And so we're shrinking the height, as you can see over here in the property sheet. It's height 0.166. Well, how far can we go to get down to where we just want a nice thin line? In any case, I think that's looking pretty good. So the height is 0. Will I be able to see that? I don't know. Let's right click and go to the print preview, and I am. Hey, that's nice, although it's kind of outside of its bounds here. Maybe I can go ahead and shrink it up so it cuts it right here and it ends about right there. Alrighty, let's right click and go to the design view. And you can hover over one of the end resizing handles and click and drag it in. And you want to make sure you don't do one of those things and start dragging it up, and so you get more thickness. And if you do, well, I say thickness, but actually not width-wise, but height-wise, then just come in here and type in 0 and hit enter. And you can get numerically with the width. If it's, not 6.33, you can get rid of all the 333s and just do 6 and hit enter. And let's get rid of the property sheet and see how that's looking. And it's cutting this guy off. Can't do that. Let's go ahead and put it down at the bottom here. Let me undo that because it's kind of nudging that down. Well, with it selected, I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to get it just, yay so. And let's see, it's aligned to the left-hand side. Maybe I need to bring it in more over here. Well, that's kind of hard to get, isn't it? So if I bring it in here, let's see, the height's wrong, so double click on the line to change the height back to 0. Close out. And so with the combination of the property sheet and my little free handing, as it were, looks like we might have done it. So let's go ahead and right click, go to the print preview. Hey, not too bad, except, hey, maybe we want to change the color. Again, right click, here we go again. Design view, don't worry, I'm almost done. Let's go ahead and choose the color here for the in stock. And it's fore color, that's right, the border colors for the line. So the fore color is this guy right here. Control C to copy it. It's hard to select the line, so hey, how about if we click on the drop down arrow and go right to it, line 1. Oh, that's nice. And then the border color is that. Select it, Control V as in Victor to paste it, hit enter, then go ahead and right click, go to the print preview, and I'm sold. That looks nice. What you're looking at here is my sales and profits report, and I also have the inventory report open. And what I want to do is I want to be able to insert the inventory report into the sales and profit report. So when you insert one report into another, it's known as a subreport. And why would you want to do that? Well, instead of going into the report separately and printing them off independently by inserting it as, one into another, you can just go ahead and print the one report and it prints off, everything inside that, including the subreport. So to go ahead and insert the inventory at the end of the sales and profit, let's go ahead and right-click in a blank area, go to the design view. Let's close out of the property sheet here and scroll down. So at the end of the report footer, so when the report's done, what do we want at the end of it? Well, we want to go ahead and insert that other report, the inventory, as a subreport. To do that, come up here on the Design tab, go to the Controls group, click on Controls, and it's right there. Subform subreport. Now, it acts for both, so if we were in a form, we could insert a subform, but since we're not doing that, it's going to switch over to a subreport. Let's go ahead and click on it, and then come down below and find a space and click. Opens up a wizard. It's going to ask us a bunch of questions. Based upon our answers, we're going to insert the inventory into this report here, the sales and profit. So, what data would you like to use for your subform or subreport? Remember, it's not a subform, it's a subreport. You can use existing tables and queries or use an existing report or form. Well, if we use an existing report or form, it's the only thing that's pulling anyway, so it's still there when we select it. And it's going to be our inventory. Go ahead and select that, click Next. And then, would you like to define which fields link your main form to this sub? Well, you see, that's the problem. Form. We're not dealing with forms, we're dealing with reports, so there's nothing to link. So you can go ahead and scroll down, say None, and click Next, and then, I'll leave the name as is and click Finish, and there we go. Let's go ahead and right-click on it and go to the print preview and take a gander, click on it to zoom out. There's my sales and profit report. Let's go see at the end of it. Okay, it's not there. Page 2, page 3, it's not there. Page 4, page 5. Let's go all the way to the end and, okay, wow. Looks like we got a lot of pagination issues going on, so it's not squeezing all. Like the inventory, it gets cut off here, so we need to clean up our report here. Let's right-click in a blank area, go to, the design view. And why is that? Because, let's scroll over, that's huge. This report has gone all the way over to the right and extended this report way beyond its bounds, and so that's why we're getting extra pages, as it were. So let's go ahead and we can clean this up if we just go ahead and take care of this guy. So let me go ahead and hover over the right hand side of the grid until I can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. Click and drag that out so I can see the right middle resizing handle for the subreport. Click and drag that in. click and scroll over, and in fact, let's go ahead and click and drag this over about yay so, and then I think maybe that's a little bit too small. Let's go ahead and try that, okay? Well, before we do that, when we pull this in, we want to make sure we pull the grid in so it doesn't have all that extra space, and so the data gets knocked around and not all on one page. So let's go ahead and right click, go to the print preview, and there's page 1, page 2. Oh, it's looking clean so far. Let's go to the end of the report to find, hey, inventory. Click on it to zoom in. Well, let's scroll up, and there we go. There's a problem. I know that's the part number, but I don't remember what these fields are, so where are the labels? All right, let's go ahead and right click and go to the design view and figure this out and scroll down. And let me go ahead and scroll down in the subreport, and there it is right there, the labels. Why aren't they showing? Because it's going to be at the top of the page header. Well, since this is a subreport, it's not seeing that as heading each page. It's what it's seeing up here. So if we want to be able to see this, there's a workaround, and that's by selecting, holding down the Shift key and clicking on each one. Gosh, when I scroll up, I lose sight of that. Let's go ahead and click on the border, and then hover over the bottom middle resizing handle and scroll down. There we go, now I can see more. So hold down the Shift key and click on each one of those, and let's drag them up here. Okay, let's go ahead and move the page header section bar down so we can drag it below there and use the down arrow key. Well, I don't want this empty space between the header and the details of the record, so let's go ahead and we don't want to do that. We want to actually drag the detail header up so it's snug right against the page headers, so there's no breathing space between, well, what we have up here by a page header section and the details of the records down below. So let's go ahead and see if that works for us. Right click, go to the print preview, and we want to go to the end. And hey, there we go. We get our labels. Now I can tell, oh, there we go. That's in stock and on order. Okay, cool. Now remember that what you do in one, when we talked about forms, that when you edit a subform into a form, it actually edits the form itself. It's the same thing here. When you edit a subreport, when we inserted the inventory in here and we moved the labels around, it actually updated the main report, the inventory report. So let's go ahead and I'll close out of here, and we'll say yes and save it all. So when I go ahead and, well, when you double click on the inventory report, well, you can't see it here, but when you right click and go to the design view, remember these used to be in the page header section, but since we made changes in the subreport, it updated the main report here. And so what you do in one updates the other. You can create mailing labels for your tables, queries, reports, and forms. All you have to do is go ahead and select it before you begin creating them. But first of all, let's go ahead and open up the customer info report. And I got a total of, I think, 14 records here. There's the customer name, address, city. Where's the state? Well, I want to create a mailing label that includes the state, but it's not in this report. But because the report is based upon the customer table, when I double click and open it up, it's in there. So when I go through the label creating process, it'll actually pull in that field because, again, the report's based upon it, even though it's not in the report. Well, let me show you. Let's go ahead and close out. Select the object that we want to create labels for, and it's going to be the report's customer info. Come up here, click on the Create tab, go to the Reports group, click on Labels. Opens up the label wizard where it's going to ask us a bunch of questions based upon our answers. Hopefully we get the right label that we're looking for. So first off, who manufactured your labels? Is it Avery or somebody else? Go ahead and select that. And then up above, on that box of labels, it should have a product number that you can go ahead and select, the dimensions, and then, well, the total number of labels across or columns. So if that's it, go ahead and click Next, or if you want to do your own custom thing, click on it, and then click on New, and you can type in the numbers down below for the different sizes or spacing in between other labels. But we'll keep it simple and close out of here and go with the templates, and then click Next. And then for the font name, gives you a preview. Do you want an Arial? Do you want the font weight light, italics, underline, change the color, the font size, how it appears? I'm going to leave it as is and click Next. And then what would you like on your mailing label? Here's the available fields. We want the customer name, double click, adds it over here in the prototype label. Hit the Enter key because below the customer name, we want the address, double click, hit Enter, then the city, and then do comma space, and hey, there's the state. It pulled it in, even though it wasn't showing in the report. Cool. Double click the state, hit the space bar, then double click the zip. Looks good. And if you want to add something additional to what you see here, you can go ahead and type in, well, the name of your company, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the backspace key here and just keep the data fields coming in without any extemporaneous text on my part. Click Next. And then which fields would you like to sort by? The customer name. There we go. Double click to add it over to the right. Click Next. And then what name do you want to give your report? Well, it's based upon the customer's table, the report that is, and so it's labels, the prefix, and then the prefix TBL customers, or you can just say, look, it's really the RPT customer info report. In any case, it's your flavor. And then down below, what do you want to do? Do you want to see the labels as they will print out in the print preview, or do you want to make some design changes? Well, let's go ahead and leave it as is and click Finish, and in the print preview, hey, there we go. Is it sorted by name? Let's check it out. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, the song checks out with what I see here. So it's sorted alphabetically. Great. Now, before you go ahead and come up here and click on the print button, I recommend that you do a trial print. What I do is I print this on a blank sheet of paper, and then I hold that up in front or behind a sheet of labels and put that up in front of a light. So when the light shines through, if I see the outline of a label that fits everything just so within it, then we're good. But if the outline of the label kind of cuts it off here, then I need to make some tweaks here. And a few ways you can go about doing that. One is to right-click and go to the design view. And you're working with your grid here because we've got a lot of space between the label here and the next label. So if you want to go ahead and shrink it up, hover over the top section bar, the page footer, until you can see arrows pointing up and down. Click and drag that up. Well, you don't have to do it all the way, but I'm exaggerating to show you how it's really going to look. You can actually select the fields, right middle resizing handle, and pull those in. And then you don't want the extra space vertically between, well, this label and the one over here. So let's pull it in, make it tighter. And then let's go ahead and right click and go to the print preview. And ooh, that's looking nice and snuggly. Now you can do it that way, or in the print preview, come up on the page layout tab and go to the page setup. And there you go. You can mess with your margins for the top, bottom, left, right for the entire page here. But more specifically, let's focus on the columns because we've got 3 across, and then the row spacing 0, and then column spacing. Ooh, that's pretty tight. So in between the columns, it's getting kind of snuggly. And then the column size with the width, maybe we can shrink it up here and do 2 inches. And then the column height, go ahead and make your changes there. And then click Okie dokie, and you see it brings it in further. So whatever works best for you, you got some options when it comes to getting your labels just so. And then when you're ready, come up here and click on Print. It's a go. If you find yourself wanting to import data from Excel into your Access database, for example, because somebody created their database in Excel or they exported their database into an Excel format, and you want to import that into your Access database because maybe you want to generate a very detailed report, which you can't do in Excel. I'm going to show you how you can do that, well, import it. So here's my database, and before I import the file, let's open up the file so we know what we're importing, take a look at it, and we can do that by minimizing my database down to the taskbar because on my desktop in my Exercises folder, double click, is my Excel file. It's, well, look at that. I got my 3-letter prefix TBL, which you don't have to have when it comes to naming your Excel files. I did it because, hey, I was having fun. Double click to open it up and let's see what's inside. And there we go, right here. We've got our database, and up at the top in the heading row, heading each column are the labels. And it's called the row header, the first row in Excel. And you can learn more about that in my Excel training video. But in any case, we got the labels. We got department code for this column. This is department name and so on. And you'll notice that when you're looking at the labels, it's being cut off. Well, for column F, if I want to be able to expand that column, just hover up and over to the right of F and, well, before the other column header, G, until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. Then you can click and drag to stretch it, or double click really fast to do a best fit, to fit the column to the longest text within the column, which is manufacturer ID. But hey, didn't we learn that in Access already, how to do best fits? Of course. Well, what you can do in Access, you can pretty much do in Excel, at least when it comes to working with the data sheets. And in this case, Excel, it's called the spreadsheet. So here's our spreadsheet right here, and then down below we have our query inventory, but we have an additional data worksheet. Click on it, and what do we got there? Pretty much nothing. It's my extra worksheet, and I did that because when we're importing this, I want to show you what it looks like when Access goes, you got an additional worksheet. Which worksheet contains the data that you want? It's on our query inventory worksheet. Okay, get it? Got it? Great. Let's come over here and close out of Excel and not save it. And let's go back down to the bottom, click on the corresponding button to our Access database so it can restore the window. Now to import that Excel file, you want to come up here, click on the External Data tab, go to the Import and Link group, click on New Data Source. Where's our source? Is it from another database? And well, it doesn't see Excel as a database, just another file. Fine. Let's go ahead and select Excel. And it says, okay, where is the address for this Excel file? Let's browse for it. And it's on the desktop in my exercises folder right there. Double click, and now it's pointing right to it. So next it says, I want you to specify how and where you want to store the data in the current database. You can import the data as a new table, or you can add the records from the Excel file into another table. And if you do that, you want to make sure that the labels you have in the Excel file match the same names or labels in the table in the Access database, because if you got first name for the label in Excel and then over in one of the tables that you're trying to import the records into, it just says first, Access is going to go, I can't figure that out. So you want to make sure it's got the same labels, the same names for the fields. Or you can go ahead and link to the data source by creating a linked table. So when you do that, you get a table over here with an arrow. That means that it's linked, and it's a one-way street. So when you update anything in Excel, it comes over here and automatically updates the table. You update the table that's linked to the Excel file, and it gets overwritten. So it's a one-way street. Well, let's keep it simple and import the data from the Excel file as a new table. Click Okie dokie. Opens up the Import Spreadsheet wizard. In it, the wizard's going to ask us a bunch of questions, and based upon our answers, we're going to get what we want. Okay, first of all, you can show the worksheets or show the named ranges. Remember, my workbook had 2 worksheets, so with the query inventory selected, you can see the preview down below, but the additional data, nothing. So let's go ahead and go back to the query inventory worksheet. Or you can go ahead and show named ranges. If you don't know what a named range is, well, go ahead and watch my Excel training video on named ranges. In any case, we got what we want here, so let's go ahead with it selected and click Next. And then it says, hey, I spy that you have labels for your fields here, or your columns. How does it know? Because it's looking at the first row in your database, and it contains column headings. Well, it thinks it does, that's why it's got it checked, and it's right. So it's not part of the data, it's actually labeling the data down below. If you uncheck it, then it becomes part of the data, so it can be sorted and mixed with the data. And the department code is not an actual number, it's a label. So let's go ahead and check this to separate it and say, okay, everybody at the top is a label, or the first row in the database contains our labels or column headings. Go ahead and click Next. And then you can specify the information about each of the fields you're importing, like, for example, manufacturer ID. Just go ahead and click on the label, selects the entire field or the column, and you can change the name. You can do manufacturer IDs, and it adds the S. I'm not going to do that, so you can make it more user-friendly for you if you're not liking the labels. And then as far as indexing goes, is it okay to have duplicates or not? Well, as far as duplicates go, see if this makes sense. We buy computers, and some of the employees get the same manufactured computer, so from like Dell or HP, so we got to have duplicates. So yes, duplicates are okay. And then for the data type, well, it's got numbers in there. You could change it to short text because that accepts both not only text but also numbers and a mix. But if we just want to keep it strictly as number, we could go back to double, or we could do long integer, but such a small number. You can just do integer, which is smaller than long integer. In any case, you can make your changes there and click Next when you're done. And then Microsoft recommends that you actually add a primary key, something that's going to uniquely identify each record in your table, a field that contains no duplicates. That's how it's going to uniquely identify each record. And so it already added the field for us by default. It says let Access do it. And I'm like, do I have a field in here that's going to contain no duplicates? Like maybe the asset tag? If it's not going to contain duplicates, then I can go ahead and choose that. So In any case, we can do that. We'll just do that here for laughs instead of having them assign it for us, manufacturer ID. And you can always change this later. In fact, if you say no and you click Finish, you can go to the design view and, as we learned in an earlier training video, assign a field as a primary key. And if you don't have a field to assign it, of course, you can add an additional field and assign that as your primary access key, choosing the auto number data type. So let's go ahead and go with no primary key. Click Next. And then what's the name of the table that you want to create? That's going to import the records from this Excel file. Inventory, well, it's not a query, so we'll delete that, the 3-letter prefix, and do TBL, but I already have the name there, table inventory, so we'll just do inventory B. Sound good? I think so. Click Finish. And then after you did all this work, do you want to go ahead and save the import steps? Because maybe later on somebody does some updates in the Excel file, they add another record, and you're like, oh brother, I got to go through all these steps again to go ahead and update this table that I just imported. Well, no, just go ahead and save the steps. And you can save the name of this however you want. And it could be, well, inventory B. And then a description. In any case, go ahead and save it. And that's it. It imported it. There's inventory B. Double click. Did it do it? Good. We got a total of 24 records. Okay, let's close out of here. Go to the exercises folder. Double click, open this up. How many records do we have here? Well, we have a total of 25 rows, but the first row is the label row, so we have 24. Checks out. But what if we come down here and we did some updates? There we go. Now we have a total of 25 records. Of course, I got to save it first and then close out. And we can minimize that down to the taskbar so I can see my database again. So come up here, External Data tab, Import and Link Group, and click on Saved Imports. It's right there. So with it selected, you can go ahead and click on Run. It says it's going to overwrite the table with the Excel file here. You sure? Yes. Okay, it was successful. Okie dokie, close out. Let's go ahead and see, double click. How many records do we have? 24? No, we have 25, so Doc's in here somewhere. Doc's right there. Record number 10 of 25. Cool, let's go ahead and close out. And if you ever want to delete your saved import, click on it, and with it selected, you do get the delete button. In the previous training video, we learned how to import an Excel file into Access. Now, for those of you who need to import another file type, like a text or a CSV file, okay, first of all, what is CSV? It stands for comma separated value. It means that it separates its values by commas. Like Excel, it separates, well, the data by cells. So let's take a look at this. Let's come down and click on the exercises folder because I got an example here, my book sales table. And then we've got the dot and then the extension. The extension identifies in the operating system what program to open up this file in. And why is it opening up in an Excel file? You got the green icon there. You can see when I hover over it, Microsoft Excel, comma, separated values file. Well, Excel can recognize and understand and interpret those commas, and it breaks those values up into their own cells. And so when you look at the extension, CSV, well, if you don't see the extension or know nothing about extensions or the dangers or how to see extensions or hide them, you can watch my Windows training video on extensions. In any case, let's go ahead and take a look at the data in a comma separated value file by double-clicking. Opens it up in Excel, and there you go. So why don't you see commas? Because again, Excel interprets that and says, okay, order ID, comma, or in its own cell, sales date, comma, part number, comma, and so on. So we have a row header, which contains the labels for each column. And do you remember what it means when you see a bunch of pound symbols there? Of course you do. If you watch the earlier Access training videos, it means since it can't display all the numbers, it's going to show us none of the numbers. Why? Because, well, if you had $1 trillion there and the last zero gets cut off because the width of the column is not big enough, well, that's kind of a big uh-oh, isn't it? So it says, hey, I can't show you all of it, I show you none of it. But you can hover over it and you can see the pop-up. There's the date, March 13th, 2008, and then the time. But if you want to do something more than just hover over these guys, you can hover up and over to the right-hand side of the column header, which is B, but just before the next one, C, until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions, and then you can click and drag over or double-click to do a best fit, so it fits it to the longest text within the column. Great. So let's go ahead and import that into our Access database and close out. We won't save it. And let's just click behind it so we can bring the window in front here, our Access database. And then to import, come up here, click on the External Data tab, go to the Import and Link group and click on New Data Source, and it's from a file. Now we can't choose Excel even though Excel likes it because it's going to be a text file. Wait a second, it's not a text file. I know, but when you click on it and you click on the browse to find the quote-unquote text file, which is on the desktop, and let's see over here in the exercises folder, it sees it because down below it's looking for the extensions of not only text, but there you go, hey, CSV. So we like it. We're going to go ahead and select it, double click on it actually. It's got the address pointing right to it, so we're ready to import. And then as you recall in the previous training video, you can import the data into a new table or add the records into a table here. Now remember, when it comes to adding the data from the CSV file to a table, they have to have the same names for the labels and the same data type or type of data, because if you don't, it's not going to work. Or you can go ahead and link to the data source, so you get a table here with a little arrow that any changes that's made in the CSV file comes in here and updates it automatically. It's a one-way street. So let's go ahead and keep it simple here and click Okie dokie. Takes us on the wizard, which says, hey, I will make you something magical. Let me ask you a bunch of questions based upon your answers. I want to give you something. Well, hopefully it's what we want. So first of all, it says characters such as comma or tabs separate each field. Now, if the character that's separating your field is not here, it says such as. You'll get a chance to choose it in the next step. So if it's like a space, a semicolon, don't fret. As opposed to something fixed, when you select that, well, you can actually set the line down where it blocks it and it's fixed, but it's being separated by commas. See, order ID, comma, sales date, comma, part number. Let's keep it there and click next. And then there you go. Choose the delimiter. So is it a tab, a semicolon, space, or is it other? And then type in your character here, like if it's a colon. And then with it selected comma, that's what we want. You can see it automatically identifies where the comma's at and puts a line down there and says, okay, here are your columns. Great. What about the first row or the header row? Does it contain labels? Of course it does. So we don't want it sorted with the rest of the data here. We want it separated. So first row contains fields and it puts it up in its own row here, isolates it. Let's go ahead and click next. And then we can specify information about each of the fields we're importing. So like the order ID, you can go ahead and add an S or change it when it comes to importing it. I'll keep it there. Is it okay to have duplicates? It says yes, it's okay to have duplicates for the order ID, but when I scroll down and I look, I don't think there's any duplicates. So we might have a little bit of a data integrity issue or misunderstanding, in which case we could say no, we don't want duplicates. I'll leave it as is. And then the data type, you can change it from long integer to, wow, let's do something smaller. The long integer is like in millions. We don't need that. And then if you want, you can actually skip the field and not import it. And so with it highlighted here, well, I can continue on. It's still showing, but it won't bring it in. Let me go ahead and go back and say, no, I do want to have it, and click next. And then it says, okay, a primary key is used to uniquely identify each record in your table. So it wants to add a field that's assigned the primary key. And so there's a field that has, well, its auto number automatically generates a unique number because it's doing sequentially, ascendingly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is the order ID. But the order ID, well, let's go back here. The order ID was an integer. It's not an auto number. Can I change it to an auto number? No. So we got to keep that in mind when we're doing this. Well, at least if you want to go through it and not think about it, just click finish. You can always go to the design view and make your changes. But in any case, I'm thinking, oh, we'll let access add a primary key. I'll keep the order ID because maybe that's going to be obsolete and we're going to go with a new way of identifying our orders. But in any case, you choose. If you want it to be the order ID, go ahead and choose. Well, there's the order ID. But just keep in mind that when it comes to entering in new records, you got to know what the order ID was previously, all this, so you don't type in like 10 again because, well, that's a duplicate. So in any case, I'll do let access add a primary key and click next. And let's see the table book sales. I already have one here, so let's just go ahead and do table book sales B and click finish. Do you want to save the steps? So if there's any changes, as you recall in the previous training video, that you can go ahead and when they update the CSV file, you can quickly execute those updates and import them into here, overwrite what you just imported in a single click and not have to go through the step-by-step wizard as we just went through. So go ahead and watch that video. Well, we can check that, and there's the name of it, book sales. Call it B and save it. And there's our book sales B. Double click. Great. We've got our primary key field, which when you right click and go to the design view, there it is, primary keys assigned to it, and then of course our order ID field. And that was number, but was it long integer? No, it was integer, shorter than long. And then of course when somebody makes a change to it, then you can, well, in the CSV file that is, and you can watch the steps in the previous training video. I covered it there. You can just click on External Data tab, go to Saved Imports. Now we have two of them. We have book sales and computers. So you click on that one, run it, or select it, and it says it'll overwrite. I haven't made any changes, so I'll say no. And then to get rid of these, delete, yes. And that one's highlighted, delete, yes. Close out. If you're ever finding yourself needing to export your table or query into a program somebody has because they don't have Excel or Access, like they do have Word, well, we can go ahead and do that. Let me show you. Let me select the table that I want to export, book sales, double click, C. Let me go ahead and close out. With it selected, come up here, click on the External Data tab, go to the Export group, click on More. And we want to export selected objects to rich text. Click on it. Opens it up. Where do you want to put it? Well, not in the Documents folder. Let's click Browse. Let's just do it to the desktop. And you can see it's TBL booksales.rtf. The extension is for rich text format, so it will keep the format, and I'll show you that in just a second once we export it. So let's click Save. And then it says Specify Export Options. Well, the only thing you get is to open the destination file after the export operation is complete. We won't do that. Let's just go ahead and click Okie dokie. And you can actually save the steps, so if you had a lot of steps when it came to exporting it, which we really didn't, but hey, let's go ahead and do it. There's the name of the export, table book sales, and then click Save It, and it's done. Let's minimize this down to the taskbar because on the desktop, there he is. Let's go ahead and you can see the extension RTF, rich text format. Double click, and there's the format right there. It's a table. Well, that's what you can do in Word. So if you understand tables in Word and spreadsheets or cells in Excel, and then of course tables in Access, they all have a lot of similarities. And so I recommend that you learn up a little bit on each, and what you learn one will help out in the other. So you can see it's all there, and scroll down. Okay, it goes to the end here. Let's scroll back up and let's test this. So we got the customer ID 32560. That sold 100 books. So keep the 100 in mind. I'll keep the customer ID in mind. Let's go ahead and close out. And then click on the Access button to restore the window. And we're going to go in our book sales table. And there we go, 32560 instead of 100. Let's go ahead and change it to 99. And then hold down the Shift key, hit Enter, and then close out. And we save this export. So up here in the Export group, go to the Save Exports, click on it. It's right there. Let's run it. It's going to replace the existing file on the desktop. You okay with that? Yes. Let's see, finished. Okay, close out, minimize that. It's right there. Double click. Okay, there's the customer ID. I did my job. I remembered it. What about books sold? Well, it used to be 100. Whew, I remembered that. Now it's 99, so it works. If you need to export data into a CSV file, comma separated value file, or a text file, I'm going to show you how you can do that. But I wouldn't export reports into a CSV file. That's really messy. Let me show you. So let's go ahead and double click the customer info report. Let's say we want to export that into a CSV file. So that's what it looks like. Close out with it selected. Come up here, click on external data, go to the export group. Does it anywhere say CSV file? No. It says text. And as you recall, when we imported a CSV file, it also gave us the option to import text. It's the same thing. So when it comes to importing CSV file text, exporting, it doesn't say CSV, but it can also export it as text. You just have to click on it and say I want to export it as text. Let's go ahead and click Browse, and let's put it on the desktop here. And then down below in the name, well, you notice where it says here TXT for text. You can change that to a CSV. You could do it here. I'm not going to do it there. Just click Save so it's on the desktop, but actually come up here, and instead of exporting it as a TXT file, we can change the extension to a CSV. And an extension is the extended name that you have for that file that tells the operating system what program to open up this file in. So if you want to learn more about extensions and what to watch out for, how to change them, how to hide them, how to show them, you can watch my Windows training video on extensions. In any case, so it's going to export that to the desktop. There's the name right here, dot, a CSV file. And click Okie dokie, and then choose the encoding. Go with the default. That's the safest bet, and click Okie dokie, and it's done. Let's go ahead and close out, minimize this to the taskbar, and it's right there. And you can see the .csv. Well, you can see it on my operating system because I chose to view my extensions. Most operating systems, they leave it off so you don't actually delete the extension, because if you do that, then the operating system won't know what program to open up the file in. You may get errors. In any case, let's go ahead and double click to open it up. Oh, that's a mess. Look at that. You've got in this cell right here, up in the formula bar, the customer name, also the customer ID, the address, and like it's spaced, it's not separated, but by a gazillion spaces here. And it's like, okay, so I want to keep these together, so I need to delete, right click on that row to delete that, pull that up. So, oh, we're getting there. Now, this one kind of comes here, but is that really over? See, there's nothing in that cell, but I want it to be right in its own cell above the customer. Oh, it's just a mess. Don't mess with that. I don't recommend it, but hey, that's what you got to work with if you do it as a report. But instead, let me restore it. You want to find out what table or query the report is based upon. So let's go ahead and right click on it, go to the design view, because when you export a table or a query as a CSV file, it's going to be fabulous, babes, much cleaner. Let me go ahead and double click in a gray area to bring up the property sheet, because on the All tab, the record source, there we go. It's a customer table. It's that guy right there. Double click. Looks good there, right? So, well, looked good in the report. It was colorful, but the CSV couldn't handle it. So let's go ahead and close out of here. Select the table now. Go to External Data, Export Text File. Well, it's a text file, but we changed the extension to CSV file. Oh, we don't want it going to the Documents folder. We better browse and update that and say it's on the desktop, and click Save. And then we can go ahead and, well, you can export data with formatting and layout. Nah, keep it simple. Okie dokie. And then we got the step-by-step wizard. It's going to ask us a bunch of questions based upon our answers. We can choose how and what we want exported. So first of all, the delimiter, characters such as a comma or a tab that separate each field, and it's a comma, so you can see it's being separated. So we'll go with that. Click Next. And if it's not a comma, this is where you can update it and say, well, it's actually a semicolon, or other, and then type in the character. Look at the first row. Does that include field names or labels for the columns? Well, I don't know until I check it. I assume it does, and when I check it, notice how it automatically brings up to the top or puts it into view. It looks like the labels for the columns, right? Because when I uncheck it, I mean, look right there. Up at the top, it's a number. That's not a label for that column, but when I check it, customer ID, yes, customer name. Okay, it's not exactly over it, but it is in line with it as far as the delimiter goes, because it's customer ID, comma, then the customer name column. So the ID, comma, then the name. So we're good to go. Let's roll. Click Next. Okay, so it's going to put that on the desktop. That's going to be the name of it. Let's click Finish and close out and minimize that down to the taskbar. And which one is it? Was it the messy one, the report, RPT, or is it this one? Remember, that's the messy one. This is the table. Double click. Oh, that just does the heart really well to see something that's so organized instead of all that mess to clean up. And you're probably looking at the phone field going, you got formatting issues. I'm like, no, I don't. It just means that it's so tight that it can't fit everything, display it, so you get this funny number here for the phone number. Just hover in between the two column headers, double click really fast, and there you go. See, we're good. Now, if you want to create charts, you got to export your data into Excel because that's the specialist. So I've got my table here and I want to export that so I can create a pie chart. delicious. Let's come up here, click on External Data, go to the Export group. There's Excel, click on that, and it says, okay, where do we want to dump it? Let's go Browse, go to the desktop, click Save. So I was going to put it on the desktop, and there's the name of it before the extension. Well, after the original name, you got the extended name here, .xlsx, which tells the operating system what program to open up this file in, which is Excel. And again, you can learn more about extensions in my Windows training video on extensions. So once you have it set it there, then here's the file format. You can actually change it from an XLSX, and the extra X is for extensible markup language, which is a more stable file format, smaller size, and also not as buggy. You can choose one of these others or to an earlier file format. In any case, good to know. I'm not going to export the data with formatting. I want to keep it clean. Let's just go ahead and say OK. And let's close out of here, minimize that down to the taskbar, click and drag. There it is. Let's go ahead and double click. Hey, there's my mini little guy. Go ahead and select everybody there so we can, well, you can create a chart one of many ways. After you select 2 or more cells, you get this little quick analysis tool. You can click on it and you get a plethora of options, the least of which is a chart. Oh, there's pie. You get a preview of it. Does that look pretty good? Go ahead and click on that. Or you can come up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the Charts group, and there's pie. Choose something else. So if I click on that, and I come down here to Charts, and I do pie. All right, embedded chart. So I got my slice here that when I hover over it, gives me a pop-up, and it's the best pay to mine digs. And it's right there. It's blue. Cool. And if you want labels on there so it pops out and says this is 27%, you want to watch my Excel training videos. We go over charts quite a bit, enough to get you certified and a little bit more. And you can also do it that way, and also with the data selected. If you're really in a hurry, go ahead and hit the F11 key on the keyboard, and it takes that and it converts the chart into its own sheet. So the data's over here. Instead of embedding the chart here, it says, hey, let's go ahead and move it over and take up an entire worksheet. Those are some of the tips, tricks, and shortcuts you'll learn in my Excel training videos on charts. If you need to export your queries or tables into a text file, because typically text files are the most universal files that you can import into another database, so if you want to share your data here with somebody else who has a different database program, export it into a text file. So this is one I want to export. I want to keep it simple. Total sold query. To export it, come up here, click on the External Data tab, go to the Export group, and click on Text File. And let's see, I don't want it in the Documents folder, so I'll browse and go to my desktop and save it there. And do you want to export data with formatting and layout? No, because if somebody else is going to pick this up, if it includes the formatting, well, their program may run into issues, but I'll show you both. Okay, this is without formatting, so we won't check it. Click Okie dokie. And it starts us on the wizard. It says, okay, what delimiter or character is going to separate your fields here? Is it going to be a comma, a tab, or something else? If it's something else, just select delimiter and go ahead and click Next, as opposed to fixed, where it's actually going to be, well, let's select fixed here. And, well, fixed looks okay, but look at that gappage there. Do I want that? I'll choose delimiter, go next, and then the default's a comma. It picked up on that, and so we just have a comma, separates the name from the number here, and so that looks good. If it was something else, well, like a space or a semicolon, select those, or if it's another character, select that and type in the character. Now, do you want to include names on first row? When I check that, then it organizes it so the book title is before the first comma. So book title, is that the book title before the first comma? Is that a title before the first comma? Yes, because after that is the book sold, and those are numbers. Okay, that checks out. Great. So you can go ahead and click Next, and then, well, that's going to be on the desktop, and that's going to be the name. Let's leave it as is and click Finish. Close out, minimize to the taskbar. There on the desktop is the text file. Double click, and there you go. Very simple. It's separating the data by a comma. So there's the title, comma, well, the title for that column there, the book title, and then the title for this column over here, which is not aligned up, but it is separated by the commas. So it doesn't have to be lined up. It just knows that everything that comes before the first comma, like this one down here and that one, is going to be in the book title field as opposed to the book sold. So there's that way, or let me close out and right click and delete that and say yes. Let's restore our window here and let's do it again. Oh, that was so much fun. Let's do text file, only this time, okay, it's going to go to the documents folder. Got to browse again and select the desktop and save it. Let's do it with formatting. Now with formatting, it's actually going to put pipes in there to make it look organized and look kind of fancy, as it were, as much as the text file can. And so with it checked, let's go ahead and click Okie dokie. And the encoding, the best thing to do is to go with the default, especially with Windows here. Let's click Okie dokie and close out of that. Minimize that down to the taskbar, and there we go. So here's what it looks like with formatting. Double click. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that look nicer? I wouldn't do this when somebody else wants to import that into their database because it may choke on these pipes here or these dashes. But if I'm just looking at it on my own in the notepad, it's a lot easier than having it staggered here, not without figuring out the comma ends here and the next one ends over here in any case. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.